So my name is Dick. I've been unhoused since April 2024, and I currently live in a shelter here in the city. Sorry. I'm not speaking about homelessness as an abstraction. I'm speaking about someone who lives inside this system. And what it taught me about how these systems work from my own experience of being helped violently by police, where the official story of care did not match the reality of force that was used. But instead of telling you the details of my forced displacement, I thought I would instead share what I learned from those experiences about how power operates to remain unaccountable. I want to talk about what happens after the violence. Because after it happens, the public often hears a different story. Not because the violence didn't happen, but because institutions know how to translate their violence into the language of care. I want to name 3 ways that happens, because once you recognize the mechanisms, it becomes much harder to be fooled by them. The first is renaming. A sweep becomes outreach. Forced movement becomes a wellness check. Destruction of property becomes property storage. A person pushed out of a public space becomes someone who's been offered services. The action doesn't change. The impact it has on a person remains the same. Just the word changes. And once the word changes, the story about what happened changed. The public imagines help instead of harm. People stop asking, was this violent? Was the person harmed? And they start asking, were the services reasonable? We understand our world through a shared narrative, and renaming takes away an unhoused person's authorship in the creation of that shared world. The second mechanism is procedure. When force becomes routine, it stops looking like force. It looks like policy. It looks like protocol, enforcement, and people just doing their jobs. The procedure is persuasive because people are trained to associate bureaucracy with legitimacy. If something appears organized, documented, and approved, people assume that safeguards must exist. But procedure can still be violent. A harm does not become humane because it was carried out professionally. It just becomes more difficult to recognize as harm. The third mechanism is the pathologizing of refusal. If the help being offered is not in service to my goals, but is instead in service to what you think my goals ought to be, that is not help. That is the definition of coercion. And if you submit to the coercion, then you have submitted to your own erasure, and they will say that you have been helped. But if you refuse to be coerced, you are service resistant. You are in crisis. If you fight back, you are dangerous. If you disengage, you are non-compliant. Every response to coercion gets turned into evidence that the coercion was necessary. And this mechanism is powerful because it makes the system impossible to meaningfully challenge. Their violence cannot be wrong. Only you can be. All of this matters because Toronto is now preparing for FIFA. Cities preparing for global spectacles often respond to poverty, not by solving it, but by managing it, displacing it, hiding it, renaming it. Because appearing safe is cheaper than becoming safe. Toronto wants to appear safe, orderly, welcoming, and humane. But appearing safe is not the same as being safe. A city can make poverty less visible without making anyone less poor. It can move people without housing them. It can increase surveillance. It can increase surveillance without increasing trust. It can expand enforcement without addressing the conditions producing harm. That is not safety. That is performance. That is hiding the evidence. So when public officials later say it was in service to public safety, ask safety for who? When they say outreach, ask could the person refuse? And when they say services were offered, ask what happened next? Because if public safety does not include the safety of unhoused, then it is not public safety being protected. It is image, it is comfort, it is reputation, it is the view from the expensive seats. If Toronto wants to be seen as humane during FIFA, the answer is not better language for the same practices, it is different practices. Housing, non-police crisis response, real consent, real accountability, and treating unhoused people as residents, neighbors, and members of the public, not obstacles to branding. The city cannot market itself as humane while brutalizing the people it's trying hardest to hide. There are no shortcuts, Toronto. Do the work. Earn it.